Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Nick toko ingoa. I have the privilege of living on 2.7 hectares of land here in the Wairarapa, which has been a huge part of my journey forming a closer relationship with my kai. For fun, I like to make YouTube videos, and it's also a great way to see how things have evolved over the years. I feel a deep connection to this whenua, and it's important to me to not only to provide for my family, but to also look after all the other beings that belong here, from the microscopic life we can't see, the life in the soil, the insects, plants, birds, and animals that call this place home too. I use concepts of permaculture and regenerative agriculture as a framework for learning, but I also try to follow that instinct that comes from being a part of the land. Each year that I observe and engage and eat kai that comes from here, the more I become a part of this land and it becomes a part of me. It's currently late August and spring is certainly emerging here. The tree lucerne is one of the first trees to flower, and when the sun's out it's absolutely covered in bees, signalling it's a really important food source for them as they come out of winter. While it's not a native tree, the native birds absolutely love it too, with kiriru, tui and korimako feeding on the flowers and the leaves. I love this tree because it serves so many positive functions. It's a great support tree for that early successional phase in a food forest. It's got these nodules of nitrogen fixing bacteria on its roots. It provides biomass and is great for nature too. Some fruit and nut trees have now come into flower. The almond's always the first to flower in July. Others have their buds looking as if they're about to burst. The spring winds are arriving, which often signals a seasonal change, but more than that, you can see, smell and feel the change too. We have had periods of rain, dreariness. The other night we had a booming thunderstorm, but we've also had some wonderful crisp frosts that lend to these beautiful clear days. Other days have been unusually warm for this time of year, and it's been great to soak in the sun and warm up, feeling like it's almost mid-spring. But it's also a reminder the climate is warming, which will come with its own challenges too. I've made more of an effort with my winter garden this year, and like any year, some things go well and others not so well. My cauliflowers this year haven't been the best. I've had the odd one, but I might not have paid enough care to the soil, or the sudden changes from freezing cold to feeling like mid-spring might be stressing them out. Therefore, many have been quite small or susceptible to rot. We've had a really good supply of greens this winter, such as the silver beet, and now the purple sprouting broccoli has made a start. It's been great to get that and the fresh eggs to make some good home cooked produce, and you just can't beat that taste of kai that comes from your own whenua. One thing I love is that when the winter garden quietens down, a lot of the edible weeds really come into play and become part of our diet. Historically, we used to eat many wild plants and ingested a far greater diversity of foods than we do today. When adding those foraged greens to meals, it's amazing the number of different plants you can consume in just that one meal. Diverse plants grown in biologically diverse soil means that we are getting the best bang for our buck with positive macronutrients, micronutrients, phytochemicals, blah blah blah, but probably a whole lot of stuff we haven't even discovered yet or understand that's important for human health. The first seeds I tend to sow are chilies, capsicums and eggplants, and I sow these as early as July and then do another round in August. I have a heat pad to assist with germination, but I find I do need to start these seeds quite early from seed, as they take quite a long time to grow. For instance, I might not even have red chilies until mid-autumn. The first new moon of September is when I tend to do my main sowing of seeds for the summer. While I don't strictly religiously adhere by the moon calendar, it is just a nice way to stay scheduled and on time, and it also feels good to feel like you're following the cycle of the moon too. I really value my bonds with the animals that I have here. I think we can learn a heck of a lot from animals and their ways and their behaviours and way of life. I feel this deep connection I have with them has made me so much more conscious and aware of the animal products that I do consume. I wish all farmed animals could have the life that my animals have here, especially since many of them give the ultimate sacrifice, their life, to sustain us. Animals are rich and unique with their own personalities and deserve the utmost respect and dignity. The hens have a break from laying over winter and have just started laying again in July. We were buying free range eggs, and it was incredibly surprising having our first egg this year. Just the stark difference in taste in that egg. I back our eggs to be some of the best on the planet, just because they come from our hens that are mostly happy, even though they can be total assholes to one another. But they have a huge amount of space to roam. They have a diverse range of plants and bugs that they can forage and eat, and they just have all of their needs met to keep them as happy as possible. I've read chickens don't like to be in groups larger than 20. They actually have pretty complicated social hierarchies and structures that can be a bit stressful if they're in large numbers. This would be a real challenge to keep hens in groups of 20 or less in a large-scale farming system. Also, it's often unlikely that even organic free-range eggs will have the same diversity of pasture as, say, my hens would. The quality of animal products we eat definitely depends on what those animals eat, and animals fed a diverse, rich range in their diets is going to translate to what we consume. An egg from a chicken, say, fed a really singular type of grain is going to be nutritionally inferior to an egg from the likes of our girls, but I don't need to brag. I'm trying to apply what I'm learning about regenerative agriculture here to the farm. Through this, I'm trying to apply rotational grazing methods here, which is where you move the sheep as frequently as possible from pasture to pasture, where they graze and eat and can poo and fertilise the soil, but then they're moved on to allow the plants plenty of time to regenerate. I try to move the sheep twice a week and use break fences to manage the areas they can graze. And just like chickens, sheep really value a diverse range of plants too, not a singular species. That is the case in some farming methods. I've read a few books on grazing animals. I don't claim to be an expert, but through what I've learned, sheep aren't as dim-witted as they may appear to some. They're actually really intelligent and selective grazers. They know what plants to favour depending on their nutritional needs, and they've even been thought to select plants medicinally as well. When we graze animals on single species pasture, they aren't able to graze in that way which is optimal for their health, and in turn we're also limited in the quality of animal product that we consume, because that food hasn't come from the same diversity. A diversity in plant pasture is apparently also a great rough idea of how good your soil health is, where healthier soil will support a greater range of plants. At the moment, based on my observations, I'm averaging about 5 plants per square metre on the grazing pastures, but far more diversity in a place such as the garden or the food forest. I'm hoping the diversity will increase in spring, and I'm even planning to scatter a few various seeds of things like wildflowers around just to increase that diversity. There are some plant species that the sheep won't really eat much, and some might say, oh, what's the point? You're letting weeds take over. But that plant might attract an insect that's beneficial in some way, or provide an environment that's an important food source for a nematode. It might be a plant that accumulates nutrients that soil is low or poor in, that then brings it into the soil. And while this can sound like hippie crap, it's really evident now that diversity is beneficial for healthy soil, animals, and us. So I've got something here that I wanted to show off. I've attempted tanning for the first time, and I've tanned this sheepskin from Lilibeth, who was the last ewe that we butchered. And she, I believe it was her or her twin, was one of the only lamb I've delivered here on Braidwood, which is pretty special. Tanning's a skill I've wanted to learn for a long time, and it was certainly a labour of love. Fleshing the skin, it was in a tanning solution of an alum brine for about 10 to 14 days, and then it was stretched and finished off with some egg yolk. I'm reasonably happy with the end product. One mistake I made was letting it sit too long where it was drying, which meant it's formed a few crinkles and creases and points. But I'm richer for the experience, and it's a really special way to remember Lilibeth by. Well, that's a bit of an overview of late winter, early spring. The wind's just coming up, so it's a good time to finish. I'm enjoying the lengthening and warming of days, and excited for summer to come. If you've watched this video, thank you very much. Haere rā.